Back on a Football Friday here on Game Plus TV and the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. We're very pleased to welcome in our good friend Jim Barker from the CFL on TSN, five-time Grey Cup champion, an LA guy. I'll just say, our dream of a Dodgers-Blue Jays World Series is still alive, Coach. If we get time, we can come back on that. But I said you're making your Vegas television debut, and you love this town.
I love it. I mean, all my friends at Turnberry and the Cigar Bar at the Sterling Club, and I know they're going to be excited about this NFL week because there's actually games starting at 6:30 in the morning in Las Vegas. So it's a big weekend for the sports bettors in Las Vegas, and my daughters both are there. My grandkids are there. So Vegas is important to me. I'm excited that we're in there, and it's great to be able to be on.
I love the reviews from the TV channel, from the network, Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network, and also the viewers as well across Nevada. Now, I think you saw just before the break, I talked about Mac Jones leading the 49ers to a huge upset victory over the Rams last night. Just the latest cast-off, now starring with another team. Are teams in the NFL giving up on their top-end quarterbacks earlier than ever? Or does it just feel that way?
Well, at some point during the second half, I promise you, John Lynch thought, wow, was Brock Purdy really worth $50 million a year? And said, when you watch Mac Jones playing, and again, it's a quarterback matching with a coach and a system that fits him. And when that happens, great things happen. Sam Darnold, that happened for him last year with the Vikings. And, the Vikings are going through another one. One of the neat games this week is the game in London. The Vikings were in Ireland last week. They stay in Europe. They're playing in London this week. Again with Carson Wentz, and they'll be playing the Cleveland Browns, who are going to move on from Joe Flacco and start. One of the really neat stories, if he plays great, is Dylan Gabriel, because he's been in the toughest quarterback room in the NFL without question. When 2 rounds after you, they take Shedeur Sanders, who is, again, maybe the most polarizing player that's been in a draft in 10 years. So it's probably good for Dylan that they're playing in London, where he's not going to hear jeers from the dog pound. If they were playing this game in Cleveland, it might be a lot tougher for a young quarterback in his first start. But I like Dylan Gabriel a lot. I'm not really big on left-handed quarterbacks, but I really love this Cleveland defense. Number one in the NFL in defense. They've got a tremendous defensive line going against a Vikings offensive line with 3 starters out. So I think it's a great 6:30 game to wake up to. You go and you bet the game the night before, and then you get up and you have your coffee, and you actually got a ball game that you got something on that you can watch at 6:30 in the morning in Las Vegas. So those Europe games are great for Las Vegas people, I think, because you get up early and to actually have a game you bet on.
Ryan in upstate New York. Hang on. Ryan in upstate New York says, yeah, go ahead.
One more thing. Speaking of New York, we also have the Giants with their newfound Jackson Dart, their new rookie sensation who's undefeated as a starter, going down to play the Saints and their quarterback who hasn't won in 9 starts, the kid from Oklahoma. I can't even think of his name now, but
Spencer Rattler?
Spencer Rattler. He's 9 starts, no wins. So that'll be interesting. Watch Jackson Dart taking the Giants away, playing against a quarterback that's never won a game. So, yeah, there's some interesting quarterback stories.
Oh, yeah, and I'm a little surprised the Saints are favored in that game, because I don't think they're going to win a game all year, but they are. Ryan from Saratoga says Myles Garrett is going to eat against the Vikings. We'll see. And I appreciate that we're following along the way that I wanted to. I said NFL, then college, and then we'll get to the CFL. I'll just say this Miami Florida State game Saturday night is obviously what our interest is where I live. Is that the biggest game for you, or is there another one on the docket?
No, it's second. It's second on my list, because the quarterback at Florida State, Castellanos, is interesting to me, and going against Carson Beck and that Miami defense. And I think this is going to be a tougher game for Miami than maybe people think, because I think Florida State is one of those teams that kind of play to whoever they're playing. I don't know. It's just I think it's gonna be a tougher game for Miami than maybe they think. No, my number one game is Vanderbilt at Alabama. Now this is not the Vanderbilt that your daddy knew. This is not that old Vanderbilt. This Vanderbilt is undefeated. They have a quarterback that they beat Alabama last year with Nick Saban. I mean, no, Nick Saban was gone, but they beat Alabama last year. This kid Diego Pavia, and he former New Mexico Stater, which I am. I was fired at New Mexico State. Just about everybody who's in coaching has gone through New Mexico State at one point, but he got busted for urinating on the University of New Mexico's logo prior to a game, and it was just one of those things that. This is a kid that just this week he said, the crowd's going to be a real factor, but this game shouldn't be close if we just play our game. Now, he's at Vanderbilt. So Diego Pavia is an interesting guy. That game to me is intriguing because of Vanderbilt going into Alabama in a game that really means a lot for both teams. Vanderbilt's undefeated. They're going to have to be maybe a one-loss team to get in. But if they can win this game, they go a long way to being able to get themselves into the playoff for the first time ever. So that game is more intriguing. But the Miami-Florida State game is surely one that's going to be, I think it's going to be full of excitement. And, Florida State, they'll have the tomahawk going. And it's going to be, that'll be cool.
It's very exciting. And by the way, you mentioned Vandy beating Alabama. That's when I officially jumped off the bandwagon last year. Was that they hadn't beaten them in 40 years. That was the end of the Crimson Tide reign, as far as I'm concerned. To the Canadian Football League, there's a lot of things to get to here. What jumps out to you in Week 18?
Well, the opening game tonight, like you said, Ottawa has to win or they're out of it. They'll be the first team officially eliminated. Yet Saskatchewan, who you called the best team in the CFL, and they have been, they have the best record, and you are what your record says you are. But they lost to a Montreal team with their backup quarterback that had struggled with the backup quarterback, and they lost to their backup quarterback in Montreal, and then they came back and lost to the worst team in the West, so the last place team in the West. So they're coming on a 2-game losing streak, and that to me is all the motivation that if I was a betting man, I would bet on Saskatchewan. If they go in there and they come out of that game with another loss, they will have lost to a backup quarterback and the two worst teams in the league, or two of the three worst teams in the league. So this is a huge game for Saskatchewan, just in terms of their psyche. They then come back and they play at home against Toronto, who again is one of those teams that can beat you, but they're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, I don't think. If they lose this week, they'll be out of it. They have 5 wins. They need 8 to catch a fourth-place team, because both BC and Winnipeg and Calgary, they all have 8. And so it's going to be a horse race. But if Toronto loses one more game, they're out of it. So the game with Toronto and Hamilton is interesting for that. And also because Hamilton's coming off a 40-3 loss. Now, if you're a first-place team and you're going into the playoffs, the last thing you want this time of year is to get mollywopped like that by anybody. And they got whacked. And so that becomes a bigger game for them than it would be had they gone into Winnipeg, even if they'd have lost close. But to go in and just get whacked like that, that makes that game bigger. And then the Calgary BC game is everything. The Saskatchewan fans, you all are going to be the hugest BC Lion fans in the world, because the only team that they don't have the tiebreaker on is Calgary. So if Calgary wins that game, they're basically, I mean, all they have to do is get even. They have the tiebreaker on Saskatchewan. So for Saskatchewan fans, they want BC, because BC's got to finish a full game ahead of them, which right now would be 11 wins. They have 8. They have 3 or 4 to play. So again, I think they'd be big BC Lion fans. And with that being said, the BC Lions are maybe the most improved team in the league. If you talk about the two best teams right now, say the Montreal Alouettes with Davis Alexander and the BC Lions with Nathan Rourke. And BC's playing better defense. They brought TJ Lee in, a veteran. Sometimes this time of the year, one player can change everything. In 2012, we hosted the Grey Cup in Toronto, the 100th Grey Cup. And we brought in the most important thing we did during the season was we brought in Adriano Belli. And I don't know if you know who Adriano Belli is, but his
The
first
Kissing
day
Bandit?
in the locker room.
How do you not?
First day he walks in, he says, boys, we're going to the Grey Cup, and I'm going to get kicked out in the fourth quarter of the Grey Cup so I can leave my mark on this league. And so that means we're going to win the Grey Cup. And he says that the very first, and he's just that guy that he brings everybody together. Still was a solid player, but sure enough, we go to the Grey Cup. Sure enough, he gets kicked out in the fourth quarter, and sure enough, we win the 100th Grey Cup. So he actually had that team. He was what that team needed. The BC Lions needed something on their defense. Maybe it was TJ Lee. They've got two new pass rushers that they have there, Bell and Anai. Levi Bell and Anai from Utah, who is a good player, 5th-round draft pick. On the defensive line now, which has been a problem for them, makes Matthew Betts better. You talked about Calgary and the problems they're having. They haven't been as good on defense since Flo Orimolade went down because we talked about it, how Toronto was so good when Flo was there. All those guys played great. Now they're all in Edmonton, all of them together, and they're just not the same without Flo. Now Calgary's lost Flo. I think that's a big point. I know you and Kevin talked about that in the first hour. So I heard that and I said, Flo is a big reason why Calgary has been struggling recently.
Two things. Craig Campbell's watching from the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto, and he says, thanks for Football Friday. For all listeners from the GTA who follow the CFL, Coach Barker provides great insight. Thank you for all. Thank you, Craig. And I missed you down here with the Stanley Cup making its rounds around South Florida. He's one of the custodians for the Stanley Cup. Secondly, here's my Lee Corso moment for who wins tonight. I was going to pull the whole top right off, but nobody needs to be subjected to that. That's who will win tonight, Coach.
There you go.
And here's one. If you saw it with Kevin, I was talking about with him, what would be the best Grey Cup matchup? It seems very obvious that it would be Sask Winnipeg.
Obviously, because it's in Winnipeg, Sask Winnipeg would be absolutely the best. But again, and Winnipeg used to be in the East, so it's not as bad as if it was BC and Saskatchewan, where it's way west. Winnipeg used to be in the East, and so it makes it a little bit better. But Winnipeg at home against Saskatchewan in the Grey Cup, that would be the best, I have to admit.
No doubt. By the way, I'm not sure if you read the game notes or not. I'm going to throw this out here, and then I'll with the viewers, we got about 5 minutes left with Coach Barker. 902-518-3033 on the Western Dodge text line. The game notes said there have been 61 single points. Our football fans watching in the States, if you're a football fan, you know what the Rouge is, the single point in the CFL. Based on the new rules, half of those wouldn't have counted. It kind of broke my heart a little bit. And I kind of wondered, why would you put that in the game notes, given the furor that's lit Canada on fire the last 2 weeks since they announced this?
Yeah, I don't know. That's because I've never heard that stat ever talked about. But, there's been a lot of missed field goals. And because of the way the kickers have been, they're trying a lot more long field goals. But any ball that goes out of the end zone is not going to be a point anymore. I'm hoping they change and at least say if it bounces in the end zone, it's a single point. That forces people to have to play the ball. And but now it's like they don't even have to do that. So, and it's hard to tell how many of them. They said 31 of them would have still been Rouge's. Well, if they were bounding balls that were fielded by a guy, those wouldn't be anymore, because now you're going to step aside and let it go through the back because they won't get a point. And there's a lot of them that were fielded and then a guy takes a knee. Now with that, the rule, so I don't know how you can figure out that half of them would not be a score. That's the only new rule that I have real problems with because of losing field goal return. And you look at what's going on with kicking in the NFL. I mean, that game last night, a guy misses an extra point, gets blocked. We've had the Rams the week before had their winning field goal blocked. Why there's so many blocks, and they're saying the distance and the trajectory and in fact, I heard one of the defensive coordinators, the guy from the Eagles, Fangio, he said there's new kicking balls.
Yeah.
And again, it's mind blowing to me. But kicking has become in the NFL, it's something different. Guys are losing games because of blocked field goals, and that's what happened last night. And again, I just don't understand what McVay was doing. First he had the fumble, which was no good, but then to go for it there instead of kicking, because it was obvious Mac Jones could barely get off the field. He's over on the sidelines puking his guts out, and you have to be aware of that. So go to overtime, and even though Mac Jones after the game said I was ready to go, and I would have taken my chances with going another, give them the ball, have my defense stop them, and then have a chance to win the game. And then the call he made, it's like we talked about with the new rules, teams will go for it on 3rd and 3. And that was Corey. I heard him. I don't know what he said. What did he say?
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. But now I lost my train of thought. Sorry, Corey.
but what Sean McVay should have done. Sorry. That's all good. No, you're given the cue. It's fine. McVay, by the way, after the game said he blew it, that he screwed up the call,
he did.
which you don't see a coach say very often.
No, but he did, because his team was the better team. That game shouldn't have even been as close as it was. And when you're the better team, you go ahead and take the ball. My first game as a head coach in Calgary, we weren't very good, and we're playing Montreal, the defending Grey Cup champs, where I had been the year before, and we have in overtime we can either kick a field goal or go for it from the one, and we went for it because we weren't as good a team. The Rams were better. That's why he should not have gone for it. And then the play he ran, that's what I was saying earlier. That's what's going to happen. 3rd and 3 in the NFL. Now, this was 3rd and 1.5, but they don't have a yard off the ball. So I looked at it similar to what our 3rd and 3 is. And then he ran a typical eye power, and it got stopped for no gain, which is what happens in our league. And again, it's one of those things that I thought it was just a bad coaching decision.
Rob Campbell, watching in Las Vegas, writes in, kick the field goal. He is a Raiders fan, but of course we were all watching it. Coach, thanks for this. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the games.
I'm an A's fan also. Huge A's fan.
Okay. There we go. Leave them wanting more. Still going to be a Dodgers Blue Jays World Series. Be right back on the Silver State Sports Entertainment Network and Game Plus.